You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids. Welcome to episode number 13 of Just a Nibble, the Not Quite Daily Beaver, for those moments when you still want your Beaver-Grizzly goodness, but just don't have time for a whole bite. Today, recording day is Friday, November 4th, 2022, and it's going to be a gorgeous and unseasonably warm day here at the Beaver Lodge. We're going to get close to 20. um, I'll take it, even though I know that there's probably some really bad reason for it for playing the long game. But hey, that's just the way it happens. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And we have, we're going to have a very interesting show for you today. I promise you that. Of course, a big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. And before we get started, let's say hello to Mr. Grizzly. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mr. Beaver, how are you doing?
I am in a very, very good mood, and I seem to be quite chipper. Didn't get as much sleep as I wanted last night, but the night before I got, I think, a full 8 hours, like for only like the third time this year.
Well, I've been up since 1:30 this morning.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know why. I went to bed around 10:30 and woke up at 1:30, and that was it. Could not get back to sleep. Just like fully wide awake.
That happens to me most often. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's usually what happens to me. It's not so much trouble falling asleep, but like I'll wake up at 3:30 in the morning. I tend to get hot.
They call that the devil's hour.
Yeah. And then it's like, just like eyes wide open. It's like, oh, come on, man. It's only been 4 hours.
Maybe you need a cooling blanket or something.
Yeah. Good morning, Saucy Sea Witch. Good morning, Kitty Lane. Good morning, Kit Space, C-Day-C Media. And good morning, Kit Linda. Oh, I should say good morning, Kit Saucy Sea Witch. I apologize for that. So lovely to see you this morning. I feel like Miss Ellen with the magic mirror. I see you, Saucy Sea Witch, and I see you, Kitty Lane.
Fran Pappert on Romper Room. That bitch never said my name once.
Actually, you know what? She never said mine either.
Well, I mean, she probably did, but I just didn't happen to be watching that day. So I've always felt a little ripped off as a result.
But it's the same thing too, when you go to all those places that like have like necklaces or stuff like that, like with like people's names.
Oh yeah,
I never see mine. Ever.
I rarely see mine, and it's not like our names are super uncommon either, right?
Well, and yours is more common than mine.
Go figure.
Right?
I don't know.
It's like, geez, man.
Somebody's got it in for me, I guess. Speaking of, somebody's got it in for me. My Twitter's been suspended for 7 days. 7 days because I told Tom Marazzo and a couple of his followers to perform fellatio upon me. I didn't say it quite so politely, and as a result, I had to delete the tweets, and I'm on timeout for 7 days. So I can't even stream our show today on Twitter, which is usually where we get a much larger audience. So I can't even tell people. Oh well. So I'll be gone for 7 days. If anybody's wondering why I'm not tweeting, retweeting, or generally trying to engage with bad people doing bad things. That's why.
Mm. I actually had something similar happen, not to my personal accounts, but um, uh, a community theater group with whom I'm volunteering. I set up a Twitter account for them
Mm-hmm.
because the last time we had used because we went dark for most of COVID,
Right.
and so we set it back up, and nobody could remember who was operating the account before. What the password was. So I tried to set up another one, and what I did is I went to the old account, and you know how people sometimes on Twitter like put a whole bunch of like handles,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like when they want to broadcast something.
Hashtags and yeah.
Yeah, like that. So I did all of that to all of the people that were following our previous account, right? So we had 536. So I manually entered 536 names like this,
Mm.
and tried to send one tweet saying,
Oh,
if
that's a
if
lot of
you
work.
yeah, but it's like, here's our new Twitter feed, please follow us here, and
Mm-hmm.
that account instantly got shut down permanently
Weird.
after I
They
had
probably
done
thought you were
all
spamming
36.
somebody or something.
Yeah,
You know,
and
I
it's
probably,
and I appealed.
yeah.
I wrote them, and I says, if you look, you'll see that I sent everybody to the old account, like, could you either restore the old account, whatnot? And I have heard nothing
Yeah, yeah, they're
yet.
terrible at that. I didn't bother. I was thought I should appeal this. And I thought, what is the bloody point? They clearly have made up their mind. It was the key word. It was the key word choke on it. That sentence, that phrase, choke on it. If I hadn't have put choke on it in there, the other portions of it, I'm sure, would have been okay. But saying choke on it sounds threatening.
Mhm. Well,
After I've had people threaten, to cause me bodily harm.
mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's probably the case because I've been invited to perform fellatio several times on Twitter, and, yeah, nothing's ever happened to them. And something happened similar thing happened to me on Facebook a while ago, many, many months ago at one point before, my beaver sweetie went to a sleep lab,
Mm-hmm.
but he had started snoring, and it was, like, several nights in a row, and then before I got myself some earplugs, some really good quality ones, and because the options are sleep in the other room and forego cuddles, which I'm just not going to do because I'm a cuddle monster. um and I like wrote this thing on Twitter. It's like, oh my god, if he snores anymore, I'm going to kill him, right?
Mm, yeah.
Who in a relationship with someone has never said once before, particularly when it comes to being kept up at night because of snoring? I was like, I'm gonna smother you myself, or I'm gonna kill him. And I got like mad. It's like for like, it's like, really? It's like we can't even use the turn of phrase anymore. It's like, yeesh. People are getting really well. I mean, with the crazies out there, with all the allegedly friendly sausage makers out there, I can understand why people on social media are getting a little sensitive. But like, come on, man.
Yeah, here, look at
What
like else.
what married person has never expressed once, at least in a relationship, I'm going to kill him or I'm going to kill her?
It's common, right?
Right, like this it's not literal, but, you know, now you have to be careful with what you say on social media because, even if most people say there's turn of phrase, if there's one person that just wants to cause you shit, cause you trouble, they'll just report it just for shits and giggles, and then you're up the creek, right? Because there's nobody to talk to. They're all faceless and nameless, and there's no real people that you can
Exactly.
interact with to
Well,
say,
and
"You look at
and
this."
and didn't Elon fire most of them recently?
Mhm. And those he hasn't fired have walked out.
Yeah, yeah. But I thought he was all about the free speech.
Apparently
I've
not
seen
one.
the N word on Twitter more in the last 7 days than I have in the last 7 years. So,
Mhm. Well, I think a dean posted an article on that, I think, about the use of the N-word on Twitter, like, within, like, the first 2 weeks or first week went up, like, 44%.
yeah, yeah.
And that's a comment we make often, like, there's a lot of people that really, 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 really want permission to say the N-word.
See, but I'm the snowflake, right?
Mm.
I'm the snowflake because I saw Bowder, I saw Leach, and I saw Rat King on the stand yesterday saying, Well, after 2 years of lockdowns and suffering, we'd had enough, and we wanted to make some noise about it. And 10 days of honking wasn't that bad. Okay, it was 22 days. You stopped for like a day or two. Number one, and number two, you think we didn't go through that too? And it wasn't 2 years of lockdowns. You fantasy living in your head lunatic.
There
two
was
years
not
we
a lot.
had multiple shutdowns. There was
Right.
never once a single lockdown. Not once.
Yep.
Businesses were asked to close and were told they would be penalized if they didn't. But I was able to leave my apartment. I was able to go to the grocery store. I was able to sit on my friend's porch. I was able to freely travel in the province if I wanted to. It was
Mhm.
strongly discouraged. Oh, and all of those shutdowns, all of those mandates, what were they again? What were they? What were the mandates? The
Provincial.
mandates are provincial.
And some of them municipal. And it's like, and right. Do you know anything about civics? And the other thing too was like the first, shelter at home order came around in March, and by May 19th, I was on the tennis courts.
I was on a patio. I was on a patio at the pub. They had opened the patios right around that time. Now they had strict rules. You need to
Right.
sit in your seat. You can't wander around. You can't. I'm like, well, that's fine. I'm still outside with my friends having a beer on a patio. What's the big deal? So yeah,
That's what I
two
mean. You
years.
make do, you adapt, you get creative.
Well, it's called taking care of one another. We're a community. We're supposed to take care of one another. These are a bunch of crybaby, whining little white people who have had their privileges revoked temporarily for the first time in their lives, and they couldn't deal with it. You know what? Fuck them all.
Well,
Fuck
and
every
that's
last one of them.
and that's the thing, right? And they purport themselves as being strong and defenders and whatnot. They're revealing themselves to be the weakest among us. They couldn't handle.
Clearly, they couldn't handle a little bit of inconvenience, but they called the torture of thousands of residents of Ottawa a few days of inconvenience.
A loving.
It was
It was
Woodstock like.
love and hugs and yeah, amongst yourselves.
Yeah, it was Woodstock, the third Woodstock. When they had the riots, it was Woodstock like. It was exactly like that. There were fires in the streets, people defecated everywhere, people were yelled and screamed at for wearing a mask, people were assaulted. It was like Woodstock, the last Woodstock.
Mm. Mhm.
That
Mhm.
fucking
Mhm.
guy.
Mhm. Mhm. And uh, you know, I know that I call it. When we say like Shark Week on the Discovery Channel and whatnot. Like
Mm-hmm.
this was Wackadoodle Week. Um,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
named it. And to be totally honest, for all the kids listening, I am way behind because I'm living my life. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and these are like 8 hour, 8.5 hour days, right? Like take the hour lunch break and the two
Mm-hmm.
15-minute breaks out like this. It's 7 hours. And I'm trying to listen to these on double speed, right? So, I mean, but it's like each single day requires me about like 3 or 4 hours just to dedicate to that if I'm going to listen to that. And there's other news going on, right?
We're having a life, right?
Right, and I have to, like, write these shows, and I have to
Yeah.
research stuff, and I have to cook, and I have to do groceries, and I play curling, and, and I volunteer
We
for
have lives. Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I can't I can't watch it in real time, right? So, I'm still on Chief Slowly in terms of watching it. I'm hearing little tidbits. So, I mean, we're gonna talk about that more today, kids. So,
Mm-hmm.
don't think that I'm not, I'm ignoring the Wackadoodle week, because I don't really get into it today. It's just I'm not there yet because, like, while all this is going on, we've got counter programming about like some hotel room in London that people seem to be upset about. And, while this is going on, Premier Bully in Ontario has decided that this is the perfect time and the perfect distraction needed to like just trample all over everybody's rights. And, I mean, never let a crisis go unused, I guess, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, Kitsasi Sea Witch, Mr. Beaver needs an assistant. I do.
We actually we've got we sort of have a line on one,
Ooh.
but Yeah, remember we talked about this in the summer? My
Yes.
friend's son needs some volunteer type hour work, and she had mentioned it to me, and then you went on vacation and then I completely forgot about it because life gets really busy. But I will reach out to her today and see if I can put you in touch with him, and maybe we can get him to help you out.
Oh,
That
now
would be
that would
good.
be,
Yeah,
ooh, my
that would be
ears just
good.
pricked right up.
Yeah, I think that
Ooh,
would be a good idea because it would be a good opportunity for him and for you. Yeah, so yeah, and yeah, we're gonna tease you with there's some big announcements coming soon,
there
but we
really
can't
is.
say them yet.
There
But
really
yes,
is.
there
I
really
s-
is big announcements.
and I so want to tell you, kids,
Oh
because
God, yeah.
let's put it this way: if you tell me a secret and you tell me it's in confidence, you can absolutely be sure that I will keep it in confidence because those are my things. But
Hmm.
I'm the type of person that one year I bought Christmas presents early, like in
Hmm.
November, and I had to go buy a whole round of other Christmas presents because I just couldn't wait to give them to people. I was just so excited. It's like, I got a present for you. I got a present for you. Like this, and I just couldn't hold it in. So I learned not to do that anymore because I was really contributing to the economy that year.
Well, that's maybe not a terrible thing after all, but
Yeah, but they just ended up being I bought you a present just because, and then I had to go buy some for Christmas.
that happens. That happens.
So yeah, when I have really, really good news to share like this and I can't share it right away, it kills me. Really
Mm-hmm.
does. Um, all right.
Have you seen this though? I want to show this real quick. I don't know if you've seen this or
Yes.
not, and I think you'll get a kick out of this. Give me a
Okay.
second here. I'm gonna pull up this little thing, and you're gonna love it. It's great. I'm sure some folks have seen it. Um, it's 44 seconds of pure bliss.
Will and I are so excited for you to see our movie musical Spirited. Now, we want to dispel the rumors that we didn't do all the singing ourselves. This is 100% pure Ryan and Will here.
Hold on a second.
Sorry, Ryan. It's been a long time since I've done this. I thought you sounded great, Ryan. Thank you, Will. Nailed it.
Milli Vanilli Studios.
Oh, oh man. Okay, that's you know what? Props
Yeah.
because like to be able to make fun of yourself that way because I
Yes,
mean their downfall was really quick.
it was, and the irony, of course, 40, well, 35, 37 years later, whatever the case is, 33 years later, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's commonplace today, right?
Right.
It's commonplace today.
Right. But I
But
mean
at the
they
time, it was
well talk about but we talked about getting canceled today. That
they
was
were
a cancellation.
massive cancellation. Girl, you know it's true.
Blame it on the rain.
Yes.
Oh man. No, that's you know what? I'm anybody who can go through something like that and then come back and laugh at themselves.
Oh, yes.
They
And in
they get
more
better.
Ryan Reynolds news, of course, you're all familiar with this.
Ah, I love it.
Ryan
Ah,
Reynolds
Deadpool.
is looks like he's going to purchase the Ottawa Senators. That's the rumor, and
Ooh,
he's supported the rumor, and he could theoretically purchase the team with his own money because he's worth about $1 billion. But
probably by now,
um,
yeah.
well, yeah, it's because of all his businesses. Like I think he has about
Right.
150 or 200 million in cash, but he definitely has enough capital to do it. But it would be best if he was part of an ownership group, right? Because I mean, hell, an
Right.
ownership group and he's the face of it. Every NHL player will want to be on that team.
Well,
Just think of just think of the draw. Hi, I'm the
right,
owner, Ryan Reynolds. Are you kidding? Every game will be a sellout. Every
right.
game will be a sellout.
Well, it would be a Toronto Raptors thing, like with
Yes,
Drake, right?
with Drake. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. With one of the sweetest guys in Hollywood.
Right, right. And you know what?
And
We know
his
what
wife would play along because Blake Lively's got a great sense of humor.
absolutely. And of course, because the team that I bet on, right? I was into Ryan Reynolds before all that stuff. When he was like just that geeky guy on Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place,
Yeah.
like this
My friend
before he
Julie.
was like the world's sexiest man and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, he was just a geek even before Van Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Oh yeah.
hello,
Yeah, my
hi,
friend Julie
you're
was
cute. I
a
like
big
you.
fan of his from Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place. She's like, "Oh, he's so cute. He's so." I'm like, well, "He's kind of goofy, but he's funny. I like him. Oh, he's
Exactly.
Canadian. He's Canadian. Cool." And then
Yeah.
he's world's sexiest man 2 times. 2 times
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He does this movie where he has to go and get himself a body, and then all of a sudden it's like, and you know what? I watched the remake of the Amityville horror movie. Right?
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was good, but I am convinced that the only reason they did that movie is to show him in like little pajama pants with no shirt on all the time. Okay,
Probably.
that was like soft core for me. I was like,
Fair
damn.
point.
It's like they never have him with a shirt on. I kind of really like this movie. I don't know what it is. Can't quite put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm. I got two more
Um,
things to show you.
Okie
So,
dokie.
two more things quick, and then I'm going to grab a coffee while you get the show started. But this is the first one. This was PP, Skippy the Wonder Pigeon, put this up. Under 7 years of Trudeau, a food bank lineup, passport offices, airport lineups. And then our friend Dean from Winnipeg put this one up. Big lineup. Pierre with the convoy, Pierre with the extremists, Pierre with the incels. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good
Mhm.
one.
And of course, if you put the first one back up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, he doesn't want to do SFA to help with the first one, food banks,
Clearly.
right?
Yeah.
Because other than the doubling of the GST credit, he doesn't want, you know, government to spend another single cent helping you unless they take a cent out from somewhere else. And he said
Well.
that we helped people live during the pandemic too much, and that he would have pulled away
Mm.
supports way faster. Passport
Well.
offices, again, if you're not going to spend the money to bring in a surge capacity when, right, we said thank people for staying, thank the people that
Mm-hmm.
showed up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, the people that showed up during the pandemic, that cost money. You had to
Yeah.
bring them in from other places. You had to train them. You had to, right? You had to take people that once worked at immigration and put them at Revenue Canada and teach them new things for, like I said, at passport offices and whatnot. You had to move people around. And at airports, well, given that, the C-suite buddies at Air Canada and whatnot, who, you know, conservatives are the corporate party of Canada, decided that they were going to just, oh, well, we can fly planes. Well, let's just put as many planes as we want. We don't care about what your capacity to have people file through and do security checks, whatnot
They
is. Like this,
overbooked every flight, right?
overbooked everything. Like, well, he wasn't going to do anything about that either. Now, was he?
Nope.
So
No,
he's
no, he would not.
complaining about stuff that, one, he has no solutions for, and he has no will to help either, and doesn't want to spend to help either.
We're conservatives. We don't believe in things like that.
I mean, you can't complain about the problem and refuse all of the solutions.
Here's another one for you.
I just-
Loblaw made $1 million per day in excess profits in 2022, according to a new report analyzing rising prices in the grocery industry from the Toronto Star. Inflationary year was a great one for Loblaw, report finds. Big grocery chains all did well as prices rose, according to a new document looking into inflation, but one was seen to stand out.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talked about in our previous show, but despite all that, Pierre believes that employers need a bit more of an extended break on EI premiums
Mm-hmm.
because they can't afford it right now.
That's the sound of exasperation.
I know. I feel you. Buddy. All right.
I'm
I
going to
don't
grab a
know.
coffee. I'll
Okay.
just be a second. My carafe is. I'll be right back. You go
Yes.
ahead. You can roll.
Absolutely. And Kits, if you're watching, you've probably noticed that I do not have the Eager Beaver mug today because I needed an extra large dose of hot chocolate. And number two, the Eager Beaver mug is in the dishwasher. So Plan B. Although it has lovely roses, so please enjoy the morning flowers. I don't know. Those are probably not roses either. Yeah, I'm not a botanist. What can I say? All right. So let's see. Let's start with the convoy and the testimony at the Public Order Emergency Commission. As I've mentioned earlier in the show, I wanted to pay closer attention to the testimony of Ottawa Police Chief Peter Sloly because, well, I mean, he's sort of the entry point in the public's eye for most of the stuff that went wrong, and he's been the target of most of the criticism for things that went wrong. I mean, so much so that he did, leave his job. And Saucy Sea Witch says that they might be peonies, and I think you might be right, actually, because we planted some this year at the Beaver Lodge. And how would I put it? He had 2 days of testimony. The first day was on the Friday, where he was being interrogated by Frank Au, who's doing an absolutely fantastic job at the commission, and so is Councillor Rodriguez. I can't remember her first name. I think it's Natalie. Also doing a wonderful job asking questions. And then on the second day, which was the Monday, then he was questioned by other lawyers. And right now, I still haven't finished. To be honest, I'm at the point where the Canadian Civil Liberties Association lawyer is asking him questions. So I still have about another hour to go. And the other testimony up until then, the first day with the 6 people testifying, I did watch all of that, and then for the other ones, I kind of tuned in and out and grabbed some bits. But this one, I wanted to watch all of it because the main questions, why did the trucks actually get so close to Parliament, and why was that allowed, and why couldn't they block off the roads, and were you actually giving them a hand? Were you helpful? Were you sympathetic? Were you those are the things I wanted to hear from him. And and the wackadoodle week thing I want to listen to because I mean, this is going to, in some ways, it's entertainment, and it's the popcorn and 3D glasses, but already from what I can tell from snippets, it's basically a wine fest, and we're not really getting a lot that's substantive or substantial, or a lot that's going to help us for the next time. A lot of these people are using it as yet another platform to air their grievances. There are people in the I can't say the audience, but witnessing in person that are cheering, and they're trying to make it another rally. I mean, even Justice Rouleau had to say, he's going to clear the room if they keep that up. So they're just shit disturbing and trying to make the case. We saw the clip of Bridget Benton saying, so I couldn't wear a mask because, whatever. And, and Tamara Leach yesterday, I had the tears of 1,000 people on my shoulders. I saw people living in cars, and it's like, you didn't have to live in a car.
No.
Right? You had freedom to make a health choice. Because you had freedom to take the vaccine or not to take the vaccine. Nobody imposed it on you. Like this. To have certain jobs, you had to get it. Because if you did not want to get it, that was your choice. You had the freedom of the choice, but freedom of choice. And everybody always speaks about that. If you listen to you watching the comment sections, and all that kind of stuff like this, oh, well, the freedom like this, they always talk about the freedom of choice, freedom of health choice. But it's freedom of health choice and acceptance of consequences of that choice. They go hand in hand. It's like love and marriage, horse and carriage, all that kind of stuff. They go together. There are no choices without consequences. There's no such thing as a choice that doesn't have a fallout. So you're free to make the choice, and this is their problem. They're free to make the choice. They claim they're not. They were.
They were free to drive across the country unimpeded.
Right.
They were
But
free to come into the downtown core of a G7 capital and camp out on my doorstep for 3 weeks.
Right.
But they have no freedom.
No, but that's the thing is it's not the freedom that they have the problem with. It's the consequences. They want freedom without consequences. They want
Yes.
choice without fallout. They want to make the choice to not get vaccinated and still want to be a health risk to everyone else.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work
That's the
that way.
part that that's the part that they don't focus on. They focus only on the freedom, but they don't focus on the consequences. So, and you have to remember, kids, that the economy and all of this time we've been talking about a shortage of workers. There are jobs out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do not want to get your vaccine, and you do not want to be, so you cannot go across the border if you are a trucker, say, there are other jobs out there that do not require you to be a vaccine. You have chosen not to be a cross-national trucker. Now, maybe your employer can reroute you to be an in-country trucker so that you're going cross-provincial borders, or
And there was tons of that work available too. Tons of that work available.
Or, you choose drive a bus instead, or like this, or I don't know what it is like this, or just find another job. I mean, there's no such thing as, right? We always say there's no such thing as unskilled labor. I mean, if I all of a sudden had to lose my work, like I would scrub toilets if I had to.
Yeah.
For a living like this, so I could pay my rent. Right? I wouldn't just choose to, oh, well, I can't be a trucker, so I'm going to live in my car and give up my house.
Horseshit
I would do
excuse.
something.
It's a horseshit excuse. I've been terminated from positions in the past, and I took whatever was available. I took jobs that really were harmful to my body, soul, and spirit, but I didn't park on Parliament Hill and whine about it.
And you didn't choose to be homeless. I mean,
still living in the same apartment. It's just
there's a minimal survival instinct here. So that's what I'm it's I don't get it, right? And I don't know if anybody's actually asked those questions.
Well, they're self-centered narcissists to begin with, number one.
But like, why would you like this? Okay, so you can't be this anymore. Why didn't you choose to take another job that didn't require that? Why did you choose to live in your car? It's like, I couldn't go to a funeral. Okay, that's fine. But no, I don't know if anybody's asking, okay, that's the singularity of your experience. Is, do you think you're the only one?
Apparently they do, because they seem to have forgotten that I couldn't go to 4 family funerals, but they don't care about me because I'm just that liberal soy boy cuck living in Ottawa who's an entitled, spoiled brat who works for the federal government. None of that is true. But the truth doesn't matter to these people.
But these are questions I would have liked to have seen asked, and I don't know if they are asked, because the goal of the commission is to find out.
Right. I've not heard that question asked yet.
It's not to blow up their thesis, right? But I wish someone would.
Well, Paul Champ said yesterday, this is an unfair hearing because the residents who were, held hostage for 22, 25 days, whatever the case was, I don't remember exactly, they had 1 day to talk about this. The perpetrators are getting a week.
Right.
Where's our voice?
Right.
Where is our voice in all of this? Now, I did get called last night by a producer from the CBC who wanted to interview me, and I said, yeah, sure. And I said, I'm just out having dinner. Can I call you back shortly? Anyway, this is the 3rd time the CBC's called me for an interview. 1 time it worked. The other 2 times they said, no, we've got somebody else. We'll call you later. I'm like, well, whatever. I don't give a shit.
So I'm going to get to that part when I have a chance to actually listen to them. But with the Chief Peter Sloly stuff, that's where the policy stuff is, right? That's the part that really interests me. It was interesting testimony. up until the point where I am at. And, like I said, I've seen about like 90% of it now. So I'm fairly certain about where the rest is, relatively going to go. There are things that I like. There are things I don't like. There are things I'm clearer on. There are things that make me think, because as we mentioned, when you get new information, you change your opinion, that I may have been a little unfair to him in certain respects. And there are other things that tell me that in certain aspects I wasn't harsh enough, to be totally honest. Um, uh, the body language, the first thing in communications that I look at is body language, because, and I'm going to sort of give you some communication, some PR 101 here. When you're listening to a message, right? Like this, if you think about 100% of a message, the words are only a small part of it. Right? You have tone, you have inflection, you have body language, you have what your eyes are doing, you have, what your body's doing intentionally and unintentionally. There's a whole bunch of other contexts, right? Which is why, for example, text messaging, like this, if you're having an argument or having a discussion with text message or posting on Twitter, like you get misunderstood often. Like yesterday, I posted a poll result stating from Alberta, and there was a quote from the article that I put on that said, most people that are not don't have a higher level of education support the UCP to this percentage and that type of stuff. And I got a comment like, "Don't be degrading people that don't have a degree." Like this. So the person, and it was literally a quote with no editorial comment from me upgrading or degrading people. I guess it was just stating that people that don't have high level of education are supporting the UCP, and then it said what percentage of that group was supporting the NDP, and my first instinct was to get defensive. It's like, you're attributing to me intentions I clearly do not have. Like this, and it's like it's not degrading. There's nothing in that comment that says anything about these people, good or bad, and I'm not adding anything good or bad. It's like, why would you think I'm degrading? Now, this was from a person that doesn't have an advanced degree. I would assume here, and so I went back and I thought about it, and I said, okay. I read through the article, and there was another quote in the article that gave a number that that didn't have that. So I replaced it with that because how would I put it? Because, well, first of all, it was a better quote, number one, objectively. So it gave me an opportunity to look at it. And yes, I could see like why out of all the quotes of all the numbers would I pick that group? Put it in.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I did, make that choice to use that quote, those numbers rather than another number. And I guess, yes, that could be looked back as an editorial choice on my part. So, but if you know me, right, and if you listen to the show, right, how many times do we say there's no such thing as unskilled labor? How many times do we, when we talk about stuff, we also talk about trades, and we talk, right? So we know what my beliefs are, but without the benefit of tone, without the benefit of inflection, without the benefit of past or prior knowledge of me as a person, without the benefit of seeing my face when we're talking, right? There's a lot that gets lost.
Oh, yes.
So this is why I'm looking for body language, tone, inflection, whatnot, not just the words you're saying, but how you're saying it, whatnot. And there was a lot of stuff that, he cleaned I've never seen somebody clean glasses as often as he did. Because every time they put something on the monitor or whatnot, almost every single time he was wiping his glasses to see that. There was a lot of, maybe. There was a lot of times where he was looking sideways, the way his lips were pursed, and of course, your attitude and your demeanor changes depending on who's asking you the questions, right? So, when the lawyer for the Ottawa Police Services was asking questions, he was coming at him pretty hard, and you could see that there was, you know, a lot more like combativeness. And but so there were lots of things in his testimony that did confirm defensiveness that other people had claimed from before. Um, that type of stuff. So it was really interesting to watch. I got a lot of that, and a lot of things that people said did check out in terms of
Right.
defensiveness, in terms of combativeness, in terms of getting the sense that there might have been maybe a bit of a control freak type thing going.
Maybe a little bit, eh? Oh, looks like we lost Mr. Beaver. Yeah, his signal just dropped right off. Hang on, I'll just pull him out there, and he'll jump back in a second. And yeah, he's got no signal. All of a sudden, his network connection is 0 out of 10. So that's not good. Tech. Some days it works great. Some days it kicks you in the butt. Today it looks like it's a butt kicking one. So yeah, I'm in a timeout for 7 days from Twitter. Oh, woe is me. What shall I ever do? Or whatever shall I do? Maybe Mastodon, Facebook, Discord, Twitch, about 1 million other services that are out there. So, whatever. Elon wants to charge us money anyway, so I really don't care. My only thing is there are more people that watch the stream on Twitter than on YouTube. I'm trying to direct them to YouTube, but, Counter Social, exactly, Linda. There's another one. I'll check that one out when I get a chance. Mastodon, I just downloaded the app last night. I haven't checked out the actual service yet, but I will check it out later today. I've got a very, very mellow work day ahead of me, actually, for a change. Thankfully, because this week has been absolutely insane. And I need to touch base with Dean later today to let him know that I can always help out with tech support because it's how I earn a living. Poor guys yesterday couldn't get Rob Wells to get his act together, and Wi-Fi I'm sure had something to do with it, but you should not be using the service that we use does not appreciate the iPod or AirPods. It really confuses stuff. So, and I would also recommend the Generate browser because it's, let me just put this up here so you can see it. I'll show you. Using the Generate browser does not hamper you can see right here. Let me blow it up so you can see it better. And I'm running Generate. It's only using 50% of my CPU power. I don't know if you can see that. 70%. And it just, even though power usage is high, it's not tearing through everything else. So it's just a better browser to use in an instance like that. Yeah, you can see there's the audio system we use to record so we can put up our podcast in the recorded audio only version. So Generate. It's a British browser, and it pays you for your data. Check it out. See, I'll find the website and put it in the chat. Just give me a sec here. I recommend it to everybody. Generate. Hang on. Here we go. Generate ads. Yeah, that's it. GenerateAds.com. And I'll just copy this, and then I'll throw it in here into the chat right there, and boom. I recommend you give this a go because it tells you how you can hide everything from it. It teaches you how to earn from your own data, and there's a catalog where you can go and purchase things with the points you make. I've got about $734.60 in Generate bucks. Now, I can't purchase anything yet because it's exclusive to the UK, but at some point in time, it will be available in Canada, and it's just a much more efficient browser that doesn't spy on me. So, something to consider. Oh, and that's also available on your Android and your iPhone, if you so choose. So, there's Mr. Beaver. He's back. Back once again, right here's the incredible. Back once again, right here's the incredible. Mr. Beaver, welcome back, sir. Your signal dropped right off to nothing. It's like you unplugged your network or something.
Yep. It's well, I rebooted, but yeah. I see it's going to be like one of those mornings.
You got to turn your mic up a bit, sir.
Again?
Yeah. I don't know why. Every time you go in and out, your gain on your microphone drops way low. It might be the mixer. I would suggest when you get a chance, check. Yeah, because it's definitely not in the options of the software we're using. But
Okay, hold on. Let me go check that.
yeah, and the other thing is when you're in the options for audio, you can like if you click on the gear and you go to the audio options, if you scroll down, you will see show advanced options, and it's got stereo audio input and high resolution audio.
Okay.
So check those two: echo cancellation, noise suppression, and auto gain control. Uncheck those because I'm doing the rest of that through my board here.
That.
Okay, turn up. What have you got checked off now?
Nothing yet.
Okay,
There's nothing checked. Everything's is that off at the moment.
Okay, just turn on stereo audio input
Okay.
and high resolution audio.
Is that better?
Well, I'm getting a bit of echo from my own voice back, and your volume has dropped way off.
All right.
Weirdness.
I did put up the gain. Do you want me to put it up more?
Yeah, you're going to have to because you're barely audible. It's like your mic's unplugged almost.
How's that?
That's a little bit better. I can increase your gain a bit, and I can drop mine down. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Weird. We'll figure it out later.
Okay.
I hope everybody isn't hearing the... Are you guys hearing the echo? Because I hear an echo. Not getting any feedback from anybody. So I don't know.
All right. You know what? Let me try and exit and enter again.
Okay, cool. He'll be back in a moment. We're getting all kinds of noise this morning. Tech support. I am tech support. So, no echo. Okay, that's good. So maybe I'm just getting it on my end. But he was barely audible here, and I'm looking. I couldn't hear him hardly at all. So we can't be having that. How's a beaver and a grizzly going to? There's no beaver. We got to have a beaver. Everybody loves a little beaver in the morning, right? Oops, let me just adjust my camera there. What happened to my camera? It fell. It looked like I was in the old Batman villain's lair. I'm at the King Tut lair. That's the Batman TV show from the 60s for those of you who are unfamiliar. Okay, so that's good. There was no echo. That's great. It just he was really quiet. So once he jumps back in, we'll get that all figured out. I apologize. There he is. Okay, let's see how we sound now. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Is that better?
Yeah, you're a little bit better, and nobody's hearing the echo. It's just me, so we'll roll with it for now, and we'll figure out the big troubles later.
All right.
And for Saucy Sea Witch, I am Batman. There was a thing there you missed while you were gone. My camera was a little tilted, and I said, look, I look like I'm in a villain's lair from the old Batman TV series from the 60s, like that, see? There we are. It's the Penguin's lair, or King Tut's lair, or something. You remember the King Tut?
Yes.
One or two episodes. He wasn't in very many episodes. I can't remember the name of the actor, but yeah. Anyway, all right, we're back. We're back, and we're live.
Oh, interesting show today. All right. So, yeah, I'm looking at body language and all that kind of stuff. The commission lawyer, Frank Au, was asking about stuff, and I just picked up a whole bunch of little quotes. And one of the things that immediately struck me right from the get-go in his testimony is him saying that when it came to the intelligence assessments, the threat assessments, because everybody's wondering, right, how could you not know, right, that this was going to be bad?
Right.
Because we all knew. And to be totally honest, we didn't really get a clear answer to that question. Everything that he seemed to say seemed to refer to his past experience as a policeman. And you have to understand that he's got 20 to 30 years experience. I don't remember, but several years. And that...
yeah, he's 30 years, I think he was a police officer for.
Something like that, yeah. With a break in between. but because he used to work with Toronto Police under
That's
Bill
right.
Blair, actually.
Yeah.
So he says, I was very, very strong at that point on the intelligent threat risk assessment driving the operational plan. And in that period, we did make some significant moves forward around how the intel threat assessment supported, enabled, and enlightened the operational planning. But when it came to actually reading the assessments, often he was saying, yes, I can't say I read every line. It was probably more of a skim through read, but I did read it. And that made my
But
ears
did
prick up.
he really?
Well, that's the thing is later on when the Ottawa Police Service lawyer questioned him, he said, like, what would you say if I suggested to you that a lot of the intel reports that came into your inbox weren't even opened?
That's my evil laugh.
Right. Now, again, trying to be fair on the ground, there's a lot happening. He's being called into meetings here and meetings there, and this phone call here and this planning call here. And
Fair
I'm
point.
sure that threat assessments and intel assessments are still somewhat detailed and right. And Deputy Chief Bell seemed to have been assigned to be reading them. But it just seems to me that for something like this is something that you would read given everything that was going on, being talked about on internet
One
and
would
talked
think.
about, on private channels. But he seemed to be just thoroughly convinced, right, that this is something that was not going to be different than anything that has been seen before or hasn't been able to be handled before. And none of us in the general public who were, the average reasonable person did not have that feeling based on all of that news that was going on, right? So everything is very self-referential to his own, and maybe that's, being a victim of your success in terms of 20-something 30 years in police services where you've had things go on like this. And I mean, I'm guessing if you worked for Chief Bill Blair, he might have been working at the time of the G8T20 in Toronto.
Yes, he was.
Anyway, so I mean, there could have been and they were able to handle that. I mean, they didn't handle it very well. I mean, they had to settle out of court.
It was
for
pretty bad.
$16.5 million, but they handled that, and it was a one weekend event, right? So how could this be worse? So I can see how you would see it that way, but considering the talk and the level of victimization, and this is not like a new narrative, right? This is a narrative that's been going on for several years, right?
Oh, yes.
Particularly from the West, like Ottawa's oppressing us, Ottawa's against us, and then the anti-vax movement in particular, and, people who are ultra-militant, sovereign citizens, all that kind of stuff. When you put it all together in one pot, right, the law is whatever it is. Whatever's illegal is whatever pisses me off today.
Right.
That's illegal. That's tyranny. That's unconstitutional. Like this, with no knowledge of whatsoever, and people willing to take things in their own hands. I mean, and things have been escalating over the past few years, right? I mean, in all my life in Ottawa, nobody had gone in and taken a gun into Parliament and shoot until
It happened.
the last 10 years. I have not seen people try to bomb mosques until like the last 10 or so years. Right. Clearly there's something up. And also one of the reasons he was brought back into policing and into the Ottawa Police Service in particular, right, is because he's one of the people that have been speaking loudly about national intelligence assessments, when dealing with terrorism, focusing on, Islamic terrorism, focusing on other type of terrorism, but not focusing on white grievance terrorism. like it's the inherent bias in just right, and he was brought in to bring some changes at the Ottawa Police Services. So yes, he was meeting with some resistance, right?
Which was to be expected, right?
Which was to be expected. So the undermining was he undermined or was he incompetent, right? Were people bringing other stuff, using this as an opportunity to resolve other stuff against him because he was trying to bring about change that some people didn't like?
Yeah, who knows?
You don't know, right? But the one thing that's clear is that this was a hot frickin' mess.
Oh yeah.
I mean, literally aim, ready, fire, aim, right? Between all the police services, within the police services, right? Like there are people taking notes, right? Within other officers taking notes that are at these meetings that have some editorializing in them or the things that they're choosing to highlight, which really make him look bad. Like this. But of course, he often doesn't have an immediate recollection of having said that, or which sounds very convenient, especially with the frequency with which he said it. But then again, you put yourself in that situation. Well, there was a lot going on at a lot of times, and a lot of information coming in and a lot of people panicking and a lot of people, right? Is he really going to be able to remember everything, this meeting and that meeting and this meeting in that short, intense period of time? And he also made the point that this was soon after an explosion that happened in Ottawa that killed 6 people at a gas plant or something. So a lot of police resources were used. I think that had happened on the 15th or something. So, I mean, they were dealing with a major event because, I mean, those things don't happen every day, right? And so there were a lot of police officers investigating that to see if it was an accident, if it was criminal. 6 people died, so it was on the news. There was a lot of PR.
Yeah.
The guy, again, trying to be fair, right? Because, like I said, there's the narrative that we want to be true, and then there's what happened on the ground, and we don't want to skew everything. But it did prick my ear that he's not reading every line of the intelligence. And then he's saying that another quote that he said is that there might be some remnant that would stay behind, but that remnant would be similar to other demonstrations that had come through where people stayed in the National Capital Region for a variety of reasons, but in some cases setting up small tent cities that would at some point over the subsequent days, weeks, and in some cases months, would be gradually through a measured approach with multi-agency involvement from the National Capital Region and the city, they would eventually be moved to either a better location or move back to wherever they had originally come from. So, is everything he's answering always has some type of nuance. So he said, I don't think it's anything that couldn't have been handled before. Yes, there might have been a small group that handled before. There's a potential for a smaller group to remain behind, but in numbers we had managed previously.
Mm-hmm.
That was a misassessment. That was a clear misassessment.
Oh, clearly, I did. I had watched his testimony up to that point, and I thought,
Right. Well, that's exactly right. It's like if you watch just like the first day and like the first hour and a half of the questioning from Francois, it really sounded like a desperate covering your butt.
Oh yes. Well, and
that's
I
the same
do
impression I had
believe.
too.
I do believe, and tell me if I'm wrong. You would know better than I do, but it looks like he may have had some media training because he was both calm, cool, collected, and sort of put together the entire time he was being cross-examined. So I thought, hey, good on you, but where was that guy when we were under occupation?
And exactly, and we had a lot of testimony, like people yelling at people, and there was a lot of calls, lots of things where so he was deemed to have been unprofessional several times. And there are quotes, for example, it's like, I'm going to crush anybody that, doesn't adhere to the plan, which he then admitted was probably not great language. But then there was something else where he said, like, I'm going to use cut off his balls and use them as bookends.
Yeah, and he denied saying that, but a lot of people witnessed it apparently. So.
And somebody noted it in the notes, right?
Mm-hmm,
So I don't have immediate recollection of that. It seems to me that'd be something that you would remember.
Yeah.
So
Unless it is a negative, negatively impacts your perception, your media personality. So you're going to pull that away. Whereas I will freely admit that I told Tom Marazzo to fillet me and choke on it, and as a result, I've been banned from Twitter for 7 days.
right. So now there are three things. The January 25th threat assessment. It seems that he did not read it, and there were three things in it that were highlighted. One, that it would be a bigger in crowd size than any demonstration in recent history, possibly on par with Canada Day events, but more disruptive. Two, there's a significant populist support for this event on a scale not seen in recent years. This means the protest groups have access to larger protester pools than they have ever had access to, which means there will likely be widespread disorganization and confusion. And three, local area bandwidth for cellular mobile devices will be impacted significantly, causing communications issues for both the police and the event organizers. Planners should be ready to have police radios on hand to avoid clogged cellular networks. Now, those are three pretty major things. When he says, nothing outside I would have handled before, police force would have handled before, these seemed like newer things. And his defense there was, when they say bigger in crowd size than any demo in recent history, what is recent history?
Yeah, no kidding.
2 years, 10 years, like this. Right.
I was at BLM rallies on the Hill after George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
There were thousands of people. They go, well, there was this many. No, there weren't. Trucks took up most of the space. There was a maximum of maybe 5,000 people in the core at that point they're protesting. I know because it's my goddamn neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So, and he was saying they didn't say it was unprecedented. They said it was, larger than in recent history. It's like, but clearly everything about this was unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the thing what I'm not understanding is how could you be so tunnel visioned based on your past experience that you cannot recognize that this is going to be different? So you said, it's like, he understands that there's a greater level of social mobilization and a greater variety of funding and logistical support, bigger than recent events, but not the biggest ever, especially in the internet age. So he was thinking that this would sort of says, well, we've had Idle No More, we've had the Occupy movement. So yes, there were alarm bells, but not 5 alarm bells. Again, the rest of us were hearing the 5 alarm bells. See, I cannot understand how it is that he could not have understood that this was going to be 5 alarm fire, just given the rage.
Well,
Just
no
given
kidding.
the rage, just given and especially given what we saw in the United States with January 6th.
And you got to remember a group of individuals that were part of the Clownvoy were hoping for the same result. They were saying they wanted to see a truck drive right through, up onto hill, and they go right through that wall. I'm like, well, that would make them fall into a giant pit. So knock yourselves out, kids.
Mm-hmm. But you say, again, not, and this is a point he made. He made a point to make this to the that tragic Brendan Miller lawyer from Freedom Corp, representing, saying I understand that it wasn't everybody there, right? It's like, yeah, that's true. Not everybody there was there to overthrow the government. Some people were there just to have a good time. Some people were just there, but I mean, when you're there to, as we keep on saying, if you don't know better than to leave when the swastikas and the Confederate flags show up, because when people have signed an MOU and want to overthrow the government, okay, you might not personally be there to overthrow the government, but the people that are there like this, that you're enabling and supporting, are. Right? And Saucy Seas, which says a giant pit, it's because there's a big construction project going on in front of renovation project going in front of Parliament Hill, so you can't actually go up to the steps of the Peace Tower anymore. There's a big hole.
Very big hole.
Yeah, that's what's going on there.
Yeah, it's actually, I believe there's a few folks that have occasionally on here that have done some work on that particular project. You can take a look here. I'm going to post a couple of pictures. Let's see. I've got some photos here that will highlight how big that pit is. Let's see. Right. That's not it. That's not it.
And
Here we
Peter
go.
Lane
Here we go.
says, the protest wasn't that big when I lived in Ottawa. I had been downtown for Canada, and when Queen Elizabeth went to Ottawa, so many people that you could hardly move, can't see the sidewalk. And I was there as well when the Queen, the last time she was in town. So yeah, that's why if you see the picture, that's what you mean, a big pit, right? You couldn't get close to Parliament. But I was there when the Queen had come to Ottawa. I went to see the dedication of the Oscar Peterson
Statue. Yeah.
statue at the National Arts Center. Like I said, literally all I could see was like the little bit of the top of her hat. All I could see is that she was wearing blue. I didn't actually get to see her face.
There are thousands of people that will gather at the War Memorial on Remembrance Day.
Right.
And it will dwarf any crowd that the Freedom Convoy ever had. Oh, by the way, this pit that you're seeing was when they were first digging it. It's several meters deep.
Right.
This gives you another idea of what it looks like. It's a deep pit. Trust me on that one.
Mm-hmm. So, and then he was saying that, there were gaps in the intelligence, things that are, as we heard in the States, the quote that's become famous, known unknowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have known knowns, unknown knowns. So these are things they knew that they did not know. So, but with all the things he did not know, like this, like how many people would actually be there? How long would they actually stay? I was like, how could he have been so sure it would not have been worse than anything he's handled before if there was a total gap about these two critical elements in particular, participation numbers and the participation activities? Nobody asked him that question.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody asked him the question how he could be so confident in that assessment based on everything else that was going on and basing on the things that he admitted that he did not know. It seemed to be a fairly obvious question and nobody asked it. When January 27th came along, he started to have some concerns about why heavy equipment would be needed if this was supposed to be peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As signals became stronger, he still said that he could not have known what was coming. He didn't see that there was any risk of being overwhelmed. Again, all of us saw it. Superintendent Bernier from the OPP, who ended up taking over as event commander on February 10th, testified he told Superintendent Drummond that there was a bizarre disconnect between the hidden intelligence reports and the OPS preparation. So people in other departments at other police levels had noticed that there was a disconnect, and he did not seem to be receptive at all to that fact. And slowly seemed to have dismissed Bernier's take on it on the basis that he was not involved directly in the planning or the intelligent threat risk assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he didn't participate in the threat risk assessment up until that point, but this guy still has knowledge and experience that he brings from his own career. And he's seeing that there's a disconnect, and that seemed to have been dismissed with the back of the hand. Now this is about making recommendations, right? And to his credit, Chief Sloly did have some good recommendations to make for the future, and this was one of them. It says, one of my top recommendations for you to consider, while we had excellent intelligence and particularly excellent support from the OPP, this was from the very onset a national issue. It was a national event. It started in British Columbia, it was joined on the East Coast, and it brought convoys from the southernmost point in Windsor. Probably the greatest number of participants and vehicles came from our border with Quebec across the 5 interprovincial bridges. The vast majority of the formal intelligent threat risk assessment reports that we relied on came from the Ontario Provincial Police. To this day, I have a question. Why wasn't I getting intelligent threat risk assessments on a regular basis of the quality that I got from the OPP from our federal partners? I want to be clear, Commissioner, they contributed meaningfully, and I'm grateful for their contributions. But I've said this in the parliamentary committees, and I will say it again to the Commissioner. There is a structural deficit in our national intelligent threat risk assessment process. I'm grateful for the Ontario Provincial Police for filling that gap and doing so to the very best of their ability, but it was not optimal for us or any other jurisdiction that faced any element of these events. And one of my recommendations, sir, with great respect, is that there needs to be an investment in international intelligence threat assessment structure organizationally, institutionally, through integrated organizations and institutions. If that does seem like there was a gap.
Little bit.
Yeah, because why was national intelligence not on this?
Could you remind me for a second? I have a couple of questions. And where is which riding is Melissa Landsman represent? Is it Peterborough and the Kawarthas? I think it's Peterborough and the Kawarthas, which is also Michelle Ferreri, whatever
Possibly,
her name is.
Yes.
I think she also represents that same riding, because remember when Melissa Landsman posts that
Thornhill,
picture?
Ontario,
Thornhill,
Melissa
okay.
Landsman.
Okay, well, she posted a photo of empty store shelves in the UK and tried to say it was in her riding. Well, Michelle Ferrari just posted this. This is a pharmacy shelf in Peterborough. Very happy to see PP call on an emergency debate on Canada's children's Tylenol and Advil shortage exclusive to Canada. This needs immediate attention. It's an empty shelf in a pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have any other tricks up their sleeves? Because it seems they're a one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have been to a couple of pharmacies every now and then, and there are certain sections where that.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty bare.
But please explain to me how that's the Prime Minister's fault.
Yep.
He doesn't make Tylenol or Advil. Go after the companies that make the product.
Now, apparently, the thing on that one is that that's the allegation being made is that there are distributors in the U.S. that have extra Tylenol that they're willing to bring in, but because it doesn't have bilingual labeling, that apparently that's the roadblock.
Well, that's the law in Canada, though. It has to have bilingual labeling.
Yes, but the person...
It's part of the
people are
NAFTA.
saying- but people are saying, I'm sure parents would appreciate having unilingual Tylenol than no Tylenol.
Oh,
Which
no,
is
no
probably
argument.
a fair point.
No argument, but what are we supposed to just skirt the law? You'd have to write a temporary lifting of the law or something like
Like I said, but maybe that is possible. Maybe there's I'm sure there's a solution where you could get somebody to print extra labels, and maybe they can come in. Someone can slap them on before they go. I like I said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This or put it on a box or something. But there is a solution to this.
Of course there is.
That's the thing. Like I said, it just takes a little will, but it's going to unfortunately require resources. And, well, Occupation Pete doesn't want us to spend an extra $1 unless we cut $1.
Right. How does that work again? So
yeah. So
doing the math, carrying the 1 and 0 is still 0.
Right. So there's a quote in that I took and said Chief Sloly was advised that this was notes that people from the OPP and their reports and their minutes taking of some of the meetings they had. Chief Sloly was advised that based on the known intelligence reports, Ottawa Police Service did not have the legal authority to deny the Freedom Convoy access to downtown Ottawa simply because some people disagreed with the views of some participants. He understood that Ottawa Police Services did have the authority to close roads and restrict traffic if there was a public safety concern, but closures and restrictions had to be commensurate to actual threats or reasonable, predictable threats. Highway Traffic Act or bylaw violations alone would not be sufficient to justify restricting access to the city for all protesters. Now, this again, he's choosing to interpret this as blocking access to the entire city, so closing all the off-ramps and all that type of stuff. And we're not talking about that, right? We're talking about blocking off the precinct around Parliament Hill. Now, yes, the truckers probably would have come and probably would still have invaded downtown,
but they could have done it on foot. Because
Yeah.
that's why he gave them the parking lot by the baseball stadium, so they could walk across the Queensway on a bridge that the city paid for several $1 million, to the Via station where you can get on the O train, the Confederation line, and it will take you right down to Parliament Hill.
Mm-hmm. But them being disruptive because the goal was to, right, you have to understand, right, their thing was that the government has not heard us, so we have to make ourselves heard. The reality is the government heard you, The government just said no.
And you didn't like that, so you threw
Right.
a temper tantrum.
You had your say. You didn't get your way.
Well, it
Like
was
this.
like when I was
So-
on Dean's show with Tom, and Tom was going, well, we went and sat down. I'm like, that's not how it works, dude. You don't get to have a personal audience with the Prime Minister because you're pissed off. You need to go to your MP or your MPP. Talk to both of them. MP, of course, to talk to a federal, but all these mandates were provincial.
Yeah.
So
And when
they can't even get their shit together.
No. And when you couple that with the initiatives at the border, which were meant to bring the country to its knees, right?
Yes.
Had the protest in Ottawa just happened alone, that would be one thing, right? But there was a whole other wing of this, right, that was trying to block borders like this to create additional pressure. So you know that it's going to be disruptive. All those truckers, they could have put people at LeBreton Flats and at the baseball stadium and at the Senators Stadium out in Canada and whatnot. Nothing would have stopped the trucks from coming into your neighborhood in front of your apartment building, right, and still honk. But there was a huge national security threat by having all of those trucks right by Parliament.
Yes.
Any one of those trucks could have had explosives. They were even doing bomb blast assessments, which again, like if you are taking the time to do bomb blast assessments, why do you think that this is something that you can manage? Do you do bomb blast assessments did you do that for Idle No More? Did you do that for the Occupy movement? Did you do that for BLM?
No.
Maybe they did. I don't know. Nobody asked that question. But I mean, if you are doing bomb blast assessments, why are you letting big rigged trucks that contain a whole whack of explosives anywhere near Parliament Hill? Right? The whole section with the National Cenotaph, Parliament Hill, the Chateau Laurier, the old train station, the National Art Center, that part could have been blocked off.
Absolutely.
The Supreme Court,
All of
right?
it.
That part could have been blocked off easily. And nobody asked that question.
It's just a giant mess. Giant mess.
You have a whole
Everybody
commission.
dropped the ball.
Right, but the ball's even being dropped at the commission
Oh, yeah.
at this part. Like, why didn't you block all the highway access? Like, why didn't you close access to the whole city? Well, you can't close access to the whole city. And as Chief Sloly mentioned, like even during COVID, when they tried to block interprovincial travel by blocking access over the bridges, like this within the first 24 hours, the protest from medical, doctors, nurses that need to cross the border, emergency lanes, all that kind of stuff. So then you have to have people staff that, right? And it's like, are you going for legitimate purpose? And instead, if he had to do that for the whole city, that would have required about 2,000 officers, and he didn't have them.
Didn't have to do it for the whole city, though.
1,800 just to clear out the downtown core. Now, of course, had he not allowed trucks to get anywhere near Parliament Hill for the first bit, maybe he would not have had need for 1,800 officers down the road.
Exactly.
Right? One thing leads to another. Again, nobody seemed to ask that question either. What if you had blocked off the core, not the whole downtown core, but at least, official buildings and monuments? Nobody asked that. It's just like I'm screaming things at my monitor, right? You know me like this. I love the painfully obvious follow-up question. It seems like it was not being asked. There was one part, again, where you asked if he had media training, where the lawyer Frank asked him, can you tell us how were the members of the Ottawa Police Service holding up? Because this was only the beginning. We're still in the first weekend, and it continued for another 3 weeks or so. And then there was a long pause, and then a sip of water, and then this is always a little tricky part for me, sorry, and another long pause, and then he was asked if he wanted to take a break by Justice Rouleau. He says, no, I can do it. And then, some tears, and they were doing their very best under inhuman circumstances, like the city was, like the community was. It was too cold and it was too much, but they did their very best. And I'm grateful to them, and they should be celebrated. Well, not celebrated, that's the wrong word. They should be understood. And then wipes away tears. It's like Do you feel they were misunderstood? Yes. Could you elaborate on that? So, now it's the question. He had long answers for everything, and now it's short. Right now, he needs to be prompted. Right. The level of disinformation and misinformation was off the charts. It was crushing to the members' morale. It was crushing to the incident command team's morale. It was crushing to my executive team's morale. I suspect it was crushing to the board. It was crushing to everybody. It was unrelenting. It was 24 hours a day. And I think by the end of the weekend, it had become a global story that mainstream media was following, and none of it was portraying in any way accurate the hard work of the men and women of the Ottawa Police Service and the partner agencies that stood with us. None of it to this day, and it hasn't, and that's very unfortunate. And this is a thing that people resort to, often revert back to, right? Like this, Doug Ford does it all the time too. It's like, oh, the men and women of the police do that like this to avoid, right? Like you criticize something, oh no, the men they work very hard. The criticism is about you, not the entire police force, right? So, yes, it's true that everybody was falling down on them. They were seeing like, the fist bumps and the photos and all that kind of stuff. That apparently is a de-escalation technique.
Oh, really?
That apparently is. It's not apparently necessarily a show of support. It's you want to try and build some type of rapport so that when you do things and you come in and do things, like this, or ask people to do things that, they might give a little if you give a little.
Right.
If you give a little and that type of stuff. And, depending what's going on and the same reason why sometimes they didn't give fines, right? Depending, okay, if I don't do it here, then maybe say, they're all right. And, we'll get a little help. But while that was going on as well, on that first weekend, there were reports of, Indigenous elders that came up to Confederation Park, being treated not very kindly, and certain police officers were starting to get swarmed. And you certainly don't want to be writing somebody a ticket around areas where policemen are being swarmed.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
You don't want to give them a motive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of officers were swarmed. Like a
Right.
lot of officers were swarmed.
Exactly. So again, right, it's like if you have the choice of like laying down the law when there's you and there's 100 people like this and possibly getting swarmed or posing for a selfie, you're probably going to pose for the selfie.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just bad PR.
The optics are horrible.
Horrible.
Like this. And it makes it very clear. I mean, it sends one message to the people who are right to be upset because their lives are being completely upended. I mean, they're the ones that have been taken hostage, I guess, and they're seeing police posing for selfies and giving fist bumps. Like this. But apparently that is a known de-escalation technique. And again, I can see it, but...
Look, it's going to take a very long time for the OPS to ever appear to be trustworthy or I'm struggling for the words here. Residents of Centertown basically were abandoned, and we cannot faithfully rely upon the OPS for anything these days.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that when they were asking for the injunction, they said, well, the OPS can't ask for an injunction. The city has to ask for an injunction. And the city had started work on it, but didn't ask for it because what's the point of getting an injunction if you can't operationalize it? And they needed the 2,000 officers, and they just didn't have them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go get an injunction and you can't operationalize it, well, then you're sending the message to the people that are protesting, they can't do anything to us, we're invincible, and then it ratchets up again. So,
Yeah.
But again, people in the city are feeling abandoned because nothing is being done. Around the 31st, they say that's when they realized that protest has turned into an illegal occupation. But according to Sloly, this became an illegal occupation, an illegal occupation, but it became an illegal protest. And this is something that you'll hear the twits all over Twitter saying like this. It's like it was a peaceful protest. It wasn't an illegal protest. See, they said it wasn't deemed until illegal occupation until the 31st. Up until that time, we were all doing fine and whatnot. Sloly did correct that. So in his mind, it became an illegal protest the very first minute a law was broken.
Yeah, period.
Whether it be bylaw, whether it be provincial, and laws were broken. Bylaws, provincial, federal, criminal code violations.
Left, right, and center.
All of them. Like this, when they asked him which one, he said there are too many to mention.
Yeah,
There's
there's-
too many to mention. It says, could you name any? Like the thing says, like just
one.
too many to mention.
pick one.
So it was an illegal protest, pretty much right from the get-go.
So the first
it
day
became
they
an illegal
got here,
occupation officially on the 31st, but it was an illegal protest way before that.
well, the first day when they arrived on the Friday morning, so I'm sitting at my desk, right where I am right now, trying to get some work done, and all I hear is horns, nonstop. And I'm in meetings, and people go, "What is that?" And I go, "It's the truckers invading our city." So that night, I hopped on the Telegram channel, or was it? I think it was their Telegram channel, and everybody was talking about support and the love and the feeling. And I go, "Hey, hi, how's it going?" So, Ottawa resident, I live in Centertown, the downtown area, and I'm just a few blocks south of Parliament Hill. I was hoping you guys could ease up on the horns because thousands of people live here, and it's making our lives pretty miserable. Within a 2.5 kilometer radius of Parliament Hill, there are 100,000, and then they cut me off and banned me from the channel. Those are my exact words and my exact tone. I remember it like it happened last night because as soon as they banned me, I said, "Oh, it's on now. They've come here to disrupt our lives, wreak havoc on us, and they don't give a shit. They're
That
going to
was the
do
plan.
whatever they want." And they
That was
did.
the plan.
That was the plan, right from the get-go. And I mean, they wanted to gridlock the streets. They wanted to cause disruption, and they didn't care who they harmed. Because we're all soft Ottawa residents who work for the federal government. The 1.48 million people that live in Ottawa-Gatineau, 134,000 work for the federal government. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
But the objective was the same thing at the border, right? Bring the country to its knees on trade, bring the city of Ottawa to its knees, or the residents to their knees, so that all of them would demand that the government be overthrown.
You need to adjust your mic. I can barely hear you.
So bring everyone to their knees so that people in the downtown core and throughout the country, because you're blocking off trade, would demand that the government be replaced.
Exactly.
All these things, and again, nobody seems to be at the commission bringing this together, like this, bringing what's going on over there, like this, what's going on in the downtown core with that MOU that nobody seems to have read based on the testimony from the Wackadoodles coming in at Wackadoodle Week. It's like nobody seems to have read that MOU.
Yes,
Apparently. Nobody seems to be aware of it in testimony. So then Sloly came back and said again, I would position the 31st as we now know this is going to be a longer term occupation. There are fortifications and there's an alarming level of public safety issues writ large, and we're going to have to pivot out of our plan to address the current context and near future contexts that we're going to be dealing with. It was almost unanimous. We're going to need everything in Ontario and a bunch more from across Canada. That was one of the moments where I truly understood the scale of what we were facing. So he didn't really understand the scale until the 31st. Even though he started getting intelligence reports on the 15th.
Yeah, and let's not forget the Ottawa Hotel Association calling them up and saying, "Hey, by the way, they want to book rooms for a month."
Right. So everything in Ontario and a bunch more from across Canada for me was state visits, an Olympic event, G8, G20. Nothing else requires that. That's when I truly understand from people with amazing expertise from different jurisdictions. And onto that, whatever other resources we're going to request, that's somewhere already in the range of 600, 700, 800 officers. So he's still thinking 600, 700, 800 officers at this point. Later on, he's making a request for 1,800 later on.
Mm-hmm.
So it became so entrenched. So all they can do at this point is contain. With the amount that they have. Contain. They can't dismantle, so the citizens are feeling abandoned, of course they are, but the police can't dismantle it because they don't have the people. It's the 31st. Like this, and he thinks he needs 600, 700, 800, which is an underestimation by at least 50, 60% of what was ultimately needed.
Sorry, did I just cough in your ear? I didn't mean to do that.
So 600, 700, 800 officers, plus investigators, plus boots on the ground officers, plus dispatchers, analysts, special constables to handle mass arrests. The number's going well north of 1,000, and it's way more than we were ever going to be able to supply within the Ottawa Police Service, within the eastern region of Ontario, and within the province. Because you have to understand, all officers can't be on at every shift, and then some officers need some time off to rest, whatnot. So to be able to staff a downtown area with 1,000 officers, you probably need about 1,500, 1,600 on hand to have people
Easily.
come in and come out, right? But it still took him a long time to come to that realization again, when pretty much everyone, based on what was going on through the internet, had a feeling that this was coming. Then apparently there was a whole bunch of mess within who are the people that are from the who's the point person in terms of the event command itself. So apparently there was like 3 changes of event commanders within the space of like 4 or 5 or 6 days, and there was no clarity. Apparently one just needed some time off, but nobody communicated that information to Sloly. And he says he still doesn't know. So it seems that there was a certain amount of freelancing going on. Now I don't know if that's the police force starting to lose confidence in him or like this, but that was apparently a mess, and he still doesn't know how that happened. But they said there was a churn of 3 incident commanders in a short period of time, from Superintendent Lucas to Superintendent Lereum to Superintendent Dunlop. And he had a problem with Dunlop being there because he hadn't been involved in the trust assessment, and he was under review for having mishandled something immediately after a panda game. And he didn't think that he should be there in the first place. So he arrives at a meeting and sees like, what the hell are you doing here? type thing. Aren't you under review? I was like, and how come I don't know about this? So does he have reasons to start feeling defensive?
Probably.
Maybe. And today, when I was listening with the Canadian Civil Liberties Association lawyer, apparently he was on a call at one point, and a deputy minister from the federal government had basically said, it seems like you want to give a helping hand to white supremacists and whatnot to install themselves there. And apparently Chief Sloly said, I find that really insulting. So before that, we had heard comments about him saying, there are political people and there are political games happening. And I'm like I said, people noted that down without them knowing the reasons why. Well, that possibly may have been some of the reasons why, because some of the other meetings they were basically telling him this to his face.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Again, it's like in the overall context, when you are the not white guy that's been brought in because you were the guy that said that the way that we do policing is somewhat biased because we don't look at threats from white people the same way that we look at threats from other people. And I'm needing to bring some cultural change. And he says that there's 2 things that police officers hate: the way things are and change. Well, you can't hate both.
No.
Again, right? Like nothing's going to work. So again, does he have reason to feel defensive? Maybe so, but there's clearly not great communication going on all over here.
Sorry, I'm just working here.
Yeah. It's, I don't know here. He seems to still think that the first weekend we just had a very bad weekend up until, when he gets the realization of the 31st that this might be an illegal occupation. And he was very, 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 seemed to be very insistent on the Ottawa police remaining the police of jurisdiction when he was talking to other police forces. Look, yes, we want your help like this, but they have to be under my command and whatnot. And it's sort of like, my impression at the first was like, it just seems like he really wanted to lead a team of like 1,800 to 2,200 people, even though he didn't have the ability to effectively deploy the resources. He spoke a lot of unutilized and underutilized resources, but he never spoke about improperly utilized resources.
Yeah.
So, and all along he doesn't want to seem to. He keeps on saying, like, we had a good plan, we had a good plan, we had a good plan. all the time. It's just that we weren't able to operationalize it, or we didn't have the effectiveness. So like when we got the people on, we're like this, we're still sticking with this plan. Because, and I don't want anybody to, deviate from the plan. And if you deviate from this plan, I'm going to crush you.
But the plan didn't work.
The plan didn't work.
So you change plans when that happens. At least that's what I would do. But then again, I'm not a police officer, so what the hell do I know?
Yeah.
I gotta jump off here in a minute because I've got some work to do for the day job. So I got to earn enough money so I can pay the bills so we can keep this going. But I wanted to throw up this little thing from Dean this morning that I saw online. I cut it and pasted it, and this is it. QP Ontario. Dean he says, I'm heading to protest with QP Ontario members tomorrow. I hate protests. Hate. That's how important this is. Ford Nation weaponized your kids to beat down poor janitors and support workers, then set aside their human rights because he wants to give their jobs away to his pals. So, if you are capable of taking time out of your day to go down and support your local QP office, branch, or if you're in front of an MP, MPP. I know that there's protests going off all across the city here in Ottawa today, as well as in Toronto. Specifically, some people are going to be at Greenbank Road. I think it's 250 Greenbank Road to protest Lisa McLeod's office.
Mm-hmm.
There will be, I believe there's going to be some people on the Hill. I know there's going to be some people at Saint Laurent, where the QP office is. Basically, it's a massive general strike today by QP workers who are going to support everybody, and I fully support them because when you strip people's rights away because you don't want to pay them a livable wage, you're scum.
Mm-hmm. And then strip your rights away and then try to take away their legal recourse by invoking a notwithstanding clause.
Exactly.
Because and here's the thing, right? What we talked about the other day, we talked about the $100,000 fines for the truckers that he just made vanish.
Yeah.
He also made vanish the $1 billion penalty from the operators of Highway 407. That money would have come in handy right now, wouldn't it,
Mm-hmm.
to pay people? So when it comes to developers and whatnot and truckers and blue collar, like this, those fines he makes go away.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
But if they're early childhood education staff and educations and janitors, then he'll put the boot on your neck.
He doesn't care.
Just goes to care.
He doesn't care.
Doesn't
give a damn.
Yeah. So that's pretty much, there's one or two other things I could have mentioned about Sloly, but that's generally the overall gist of it. There's not really much more to add other than the OPS police lawyer in the first 13 minutes really delivered a couple of hard punches, really took him down. But then he blew it with the rest of his testimony by putting words in Sloly's mouth, so much so that Rouleau had to tell him to back off and ask him if he would, could you let me run my own inquiry, please? So you could see the animus between Ottawa Police Services because that guy seemed to be on a mission to really take him down, which also gives you another idea of some of the mess and going on there. So yeah, Kits, I think we have a show.
Yeah, because I do have to go. Apologies.
All right.
Hey, look, we've been on for an hour and a half, so you get a little bit more than just a nibble this morning. But I do have things I have to take care of here in the day job to keep the bills paid, so we can keep the show on the air.
Right. Okay, so let's go to the closing of our show. Kits, that's the end of this episode of Just a Nibble, the Not Quite Daily Beaver podcast. We hope you love listening to us because we love making this for you. And we hope that, through my analysis of Chief Sloly's testimony, that you can get a little more color and texture into what go on. He's not totally a bad guy, but there was a lot of incompetence, and he did have some helpful suggestions as to how things could go better. So which was the point of this inquiry as well, right? It's not to find anybody guilty, but, find where the gaps are and how we can do better so that we can avoid another situation like this. If you have time, please listen to our most recent interview with Bailey Reed on how to change organizational culture to deal with sexual violence. It is incredibly enlightening, and Mr. Grizzly and I actually open up a little bit, and it gets a little more personal than we thought it would have gotten. So it might be a good one for you to check out, especially if you have especially if you have children. And because there's some stuff in there that
There's
could be
some stuff in
helpful
there.
to you if you're parents.
Yeah, it was a
Because
really
democracy-
great interview. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It was a great interview. We're going to have Bailey back on again at some point in time in the future because it was an enlightening moment for the both of us in ways we didn't expect.
Yeah. We thought we were just going to look at this clinically, and turns out that we got more involved personally than we thought it would be. So if you like it, when we tend to get a little emotional, you'll probably really like that one.
So remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Because democracy is something that you do. Please make a donation to
Cornerstone Housing.
Cornerstone Housing for Women. If you have the opportunity, they really need the help. If you want to subscribe to us, you can visit our pod page at podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between all of those words. And, will come directly to you. If you've got any comments for us, story suggestions, some gentle corrections like we had on our Twitter feed, please do reach us on our Facebook blog page, our Twitter page, and our email is truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And if you really like this podcast and wish to encourage us to do more, well, we shake it for tips. We do it for you, baby. Yep. Like this, I mean, I'm very Celine Dion-esque up here, but I'll shake them for you. So go to our tip jar at coffee.com, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And if you'd rather get something for your money, as Mr. Grizzly is showing you, we have some merch. Beautiful, lovely merch for you.
And the link is in the chat.
6 t-shirt designs in sizes from small to 3XL. Very reasonable prices. And, when you wear them, you let people know that you're an informed and engaged citizen. And that is very, very, very sexy.
Oh, yeah.
Just letting you know.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yes. And if you're listening to us on Apple, please give us a review. Please give us some stars. If you're listening to us on video, please download our episodes so we can make the charts. You don't have to listen to them twice. You can, because it's twice as nice if you do. But if you don't, that's fine. Just download them and give us a hand.
Well, and you might miss something the first time around too, right? So that's why you re-listen. It's like, wait a minute, I didn't catch that. I've listened to the Bailey interview twice already, and it's like, oh, I missed stuff the first time around.
Yeah. And also because democracy is something that you do. Yes, Kit, you support QP workers today. Yes. Go to your MPP's office if you're in Ontario, just let your voice be heard, because this is not okay. Not okay. And if you're outside of Ontario, like this, just know, like this, everybody's a copycat, right? So if this works for Doug Ford, this is coming soon to a province near you. So, be alert, eyes wide open, as we say. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your Eager Beaver saying, until next time, dear kids, it can be a tough world out there, so be kind to and gentle with yourself. Words of wisdom, Mr. Grizzly?
Yeah, get out and support your QP workers today, because if you let their rights get stripped away, yours are next. Don't kid yourself.
Yep. Call, email your MPPs, flood their phone lines, flood their email, and if you have time to do a written letter and send it in like this, you don't need any postage. Written letters tell people like this. I think like one letter represents like 1,000 or 2,000 people, whatnot. If you take the time to actually sit down and write a letter with your own hand and put it in a mailbox, they know you're really pissed off. That really signals. So like email's one thing, because you can take a form letter from someone, copy it and send it in. But if you actually write something yourself, that really gets their attention. So if you have some time today, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, grab out your best cursive like this, and give them some what for. Roll the credits, Mr. Grizzly.
The True North Eager Beaver podcast is an Eager Beaver Mr. Grizzly collaboration. Research, story, and guest curation and copy written by the Eager Beaver. Recording, production, editing, and additional research by Mr. Grizzly. Music courtesy of Ben Sound Royalty Free Music. Once again, thank you to our founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss Fee Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing and CanadianTarot.com, and thank you to Pete Jarvis for our artwork. We love it. Kids, we'll talk to you real soon. Bye.
Take care.
Have a great weekend, kids. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to EODL this weekend for the theater competition, so cross your fingers and wish me a broken leg.
Break a leg.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum. And the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds